Greetings and salutations, true believers. Welcome to Reopening the XFiles, Marina and Nate's shallow walk through the TV phenomenon, the XFiles. I'm Nate, also known as Ultimate Movie Geek, and once again I'm joined by Powell, aka Mrs. Movie Geek. And later on, we will be joined by Ultra NJ Games.
Yay!
How's lockdown going?
Yeah. Bit rubbish, isn't it? Well, it's not, because working from home, keeping the kids safe.
Trying to keep the
trying
kids...
to keep everybody else safe, and everybody's doing an amazing job that are going out and tackling it every day, so much kudos to them. So yeah, it's a bit rubbish that we're stuck in, but in the grand scheme of things it actually isn't. A lot of people need to get a grip and stay in.
Yes, they do.
That's just my take.
No, I agree. We are third episode into the first series of the XFiles, third night in a row, and tonight is probably the most well-known XFiles episode ever made, probably the one that propelled it into the stratosphere, in my opinion. The episode Squeeze, which I'll just do a little run through. In the episode, Mulder and Scully investigate a series of ritualistic killings by somebody seemingly capable of squeezing his body through impossibly narrow gaps. The agents deduce that their suspect may be a genetic mutant who has been killing in sprees for 90 years. So there we go. Precursor to Tooms. What did you think of this episode?
It's not one of the ones that I remember massively well from the first time I watched it. There's some I still remember really clearly. I do remember it, and I do remember being freaked out by Tooms. I remember the latter, a bit of a spoiler there, but again, it's nearly 30 years old. The latter where he returns in the later episode. It's like this was the thing that where it's not just about ghosts, it's not just about aliens.
Well, it's not just about aliens,
UFOs.
That's it, yeah.
It's genetic issues.
There's something else, yeah.
Yeah, it's the unexplained.
Like you mentioned last night, that magazine, that newspaper, the
National Enquirer.
National Enquirer. It is pulling everything from there, so it's not just aliens, it is something else. There's mysteries out there, so you got Bigfoot and things like that. This was the episode that brought in Monster of the Week.
Yeah, it was Monster of the Week, but more so that he's actually human.
Yes.
Because he's not like a fluke worm or whatever they are. These are different episodes, and the Wendigo, and it's a person, but there's something happened, and he looks in his 30s, doesn't he? But when they relate the killings back, does it go back to 1933?
33, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and like the original officer from the 60s and stuff was around. And when they start digging up in the basement, they find his partner.
There's different bits.
They find his partner again from and then the original FBI investigator and from the 30s. So all the same bite marks on the bones.
Yeah, teeth marks that match.
Yeah, and they're trying to explain it away, and it's just an interesting one because it's sort of showing you there's more to life than what we know.
Yeah, because let's face it, if the X-Files just continued doing stuff like UFOs and aliens, it would probably have become pretty stale quite quickly.
There's only so much you can do with it, isn't there?
And this, having 22 episodes a series just based on that, and like you said yourself, one of the parts that lost your interest was the conspiracy sections, which seemed to drag on a lot.
It just don't do out for me. It was interesting, but it does get a bit boring because you don't know what's going on or who's who and who's to trust and who's not to trust, and it just overtook it a little bit. I felt that, and it doesn't really happen in these episodes, and it's a good episode, and I can remember watching him, and he's proper creepy. The guy who's the actor is a very
Doug
good
Hutchinson,
actor.
yeah, who I think I said that I mentioned Green Mile, and it's the same guy from the Green Mile. You were like, oh my
I
god!
was like, oh my god, it is. It's Percy. It's Percy from the Green Mile.
And he's a bastard in that
I
too.
know, and he's brilliant in that because you absolutely hate him. He's such an asshole. And that's somebody doing the job properly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So he's a really good
Yeah.
actor. But it creeps you out, and like the way he looks at these people.
He's just salivating pretty much. Isn't
Yeah,
he?
it's an overwhelming urge. It's
Yeah.
nature
Yeah.
at its best
Yeah.
within him. He's like
He's an animal.
Yeah, and he's like watches a bloke. It's not just women, because you quite often see blokes being quite creepy and
Yeah.
pervy, and vice versa. But more so men, in my experience, who kind of that look at, you know, the really, oh my god, he's proper creep.
Yeah.
He stares, but he does that even at the men, because he must be able to,
he can sense them. It's like a scent, isn't it?
And the
Yeah.
smell, and he wants the liver, and he's like the way he licks his fingers. You remember that part?
That's in the second one, though.
Second
what you're
one,
talking about, yeah.
That's the bit that stood out for me.
But yeah, Tooms, Eugene Victor Tooms, he is a he's like an animal. I can't remember what they're called. An animal welfare guy who goes out and collects bodies, roadkill, and stray animals and all that sort of stuff. And it's basically just a job for him to do whilst he is on the hunt for 5 livers that will sustain him for another 30 years of hibernation.
Yeah, he basically hibernates. He feeds, doesn't he?
But it's only a certain type of liver or a certain type of person that he has to get. So whoever... And what's good about this episode is the way they film it. And when he's in his trance and he's like hunting for someone, the camera goes grey, but the person he's focusing on is in full colour.
Yeah.
And it just, everything slows down.
Very Schindler's List.
Very Schindler's List. Well, this was before Schindler's List, wasn't it?
I don't actually know.
93? Oh no, around the same time, actually. But yeah, it's such a fantastic episode, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, what is interesting to me as well, though, I found that the story is very similar to Stephen King's It, where...
Yeah, we did draw comparisons, didn't we, when we watched it? And it's every so many years.
Yeah.
And it comes out of... And you sort of said
hibernation,
to me at one point, you said, well, is he really human?
Yeah.
Is it just a form that he's taken?
Maybe.
Because he doesn't age. He's been at least around since the 1930s. Just because you don't know whether the technology is there to have linked
just because the copper
else.
Was able to... He's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah, the one from the 60s, yeah.
I thought he was he wasn't from the 30s.
No, I don't know. He could have been. I don't know, he could have been.
I'm just picking up similarities to that.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of... It's interesting to look at it and see if those ideas came from that. Yeah, so the guy in the wheelchair was from 1933, and he was a cop from then. So I'm not too sure if it goes any further back.
He was like he was glad he was alive still, wasn't he? Because he was so disheartened that he didn't get in.
But he was doing investigating in the 60s as well, wasn't he? So he was like sort of chasing it, trying to get this guy. And he had an idea who it was anyway, didn't he? He knew it was Tooms, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, but Tooms from the 30s. But yeah, interesting as well that Tooms is almost like a serial killer, or is a serial killer, but he keeps his trophies as well.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that pops up, because he takes the trophies during the kill, and then when Scully's in there, when Scully's and Mulder are in the lair, he takes her necklace.
Yeah.
Which isn't the crucifix this time, which is funny. Is there anything else that pops out to you?
No, well, I mean, to be fair, we watched it a bit ago now, didn't we? Because we're on the 3rd series.
He makes his little hibernation out of his own bile.
Yeah. Is it this one or the latter one where Mulder gets a bit on his finger and he's dead funny. He goes, "Is there any way I can get this off without not looking really uncool?"
I think that's this one. Yeah,
that bit makes me laugh. That I always remember because the way he does it, because it is you kind
it's
of
gross,
be like, "Oh my god, get it off me."
This looks like the opening. Think there's anything inside?
Oh my god, Mulder. It smells like... I think it's bile.
Is there any way I can get off my fingers quickly without betraying my cool exterior?
All right. So the reason why we're going through the X-Files, which, we haven't said to the viewers, is because we're showing our eldest son, Ultra NJ Games, on YouTube, all the X-Files episodes. So we're doing like an X-Files episode a night to show him what we grew up with. Like, I think you're a little bit older than I was when I started it, and you're younger than
I was.
Your mum was. So, what did you think of this episode?
I really liked the episode because it shows you that people are different, and that there are people out there who are they're different to everybody, and they will do stuff that nobody else will do. And
Freak.
I have a really big theory about Tooms.
Go on.
Right. So he's an alien, a spy from like a different planet, trying to figure out what he's gonna do with this planet, and he every now and then, because he's like 100 years old.
Yeah, well, we don't know, do we? We don't know if he's older or not.
If he's older than like 100 or whatever, he has to. That's why he gets the livers. He didn't used to get the livers, but something helps him in the livers. Something helps him.
I like stay
to live,
young.
to stay young, yeah.
Yeah, but
well, livers have a regeneration.
I like the idea, but why would he hibernate for 30 years if he's a spy? He's not doing much staying.
Because maybe the skin gets a bit mouldy, like fruit.
Yeah.
And
it starts rotting if he's not careful.
And then the hibernation is like regeneration on the doctor.
Well, the thing is, the liver. The reason why they chose liver was because Chris Carter tasted fragua in the south of France and chose that. But what would keep you alive is that if he's eating livers, if they get damaged, they can regenerate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that works in that sense. Well, yeah, interesting theory. This is the first episode as well where Scully has to actually make a choice. So she chooses, because she meets up with an old friend who asks for her help. And obviously Mulder's seemed to be like spooky Mulder, isn't he? And she actually chooses to defend Mulder because Mulder's theory is correct. So she chooses, instead of being the person who's spying on him, she then chooses to be part of the team, so to speak.
Yeah, she defends it.
Yeah. So should we get into some...
Fanboy Facts.
we should. All right. In 2008, author Neil Gaiman, who wrote Coraline and other things,
No way.
chose what? I've written that wrong. Tooms was one of his all-time favourite monsters.
Yeah.
The first episode of the Monster of the Week side of the show, which obviously has spanned different shows and different genres and such. This episode was made to prove that the series could be more than just aliens. Obviously,
yeah,
that
and that's
works
what
as
we
well.
said.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, like I said, you can only go so far.
Yeah, with that storyline.
With the storyline, it'd be different if they existed and you could travel, go to different planets, because then it'd just be Star Trek or something, wouldn't it? And then you've got an endless series.
Be awesome, wouldn't it?
But that's the whole thing. Is do they exist? Do they not exist? Anyway, back to your fanboy fact.
Fanboy facts.
I haven't watched Star Trek.
You should. This episode is probably the best remembered episode throughout the run, mainly due to the fact this episode gives us the shot of Mulder and Scully in the opening credits, opening the door. As a plot point, this is a rare episode where Scully doesn't wear the gold crucifix, which I've mentioned before.
Yeah.
Doug Hutchinson, who we mentioned, who played Tooms, to thank Chris Carter, sent him an animal liver.
Ooh.
That's gross, isn't it?
Why would he do that?
Because
It's a
Tooms
Taylor's
eat
joke,
livers.
it's a nod, isn't it?
He also, you said that he was quite creepy and all that sort of stuff. Who do you reckon he set his portrayal based on?
Do you mean based himself on?
Yes.
In
It's
a
a
long
better
way,
word, isn't it? Yeah, I gotta go the long way.
I don't know, maybe some bit Bundy or something.
Well, we've already mentioned this film before in the first episode. He based himself on Anthony Hopkins from Silence of the Lambs,
Right.
and you can kind of see it. It's that lusting after.
It is, but it's also a little bit Norman out of Psycho.
Yeah.
With the very reserved
Yes.
manner about
Very
him.
calm, yeah, very
calm,
cool.
very reserved,
Yeah.
very quiet and shy,
Yeah.
almost. So yeah, I could see that as well. I mean, that's probably not that, but that's what I would
Well,
see.
no, I can see that because like in Psycho, you
And the
can see,
birds and
yeah.
you know the
especially when he's talking to Marion in the parlor, and he's all calm, and then he gets all.
yeah.
Anyway, that's Psycho. That's maybe a different one. Have you got anything else to add?
Yeah, I've got to say, when he chooses his victims, he just stares at them like it's really weird. He just stares at them, and he's like, "I'm gonna get you,"
Yeah.
and then
So it's like there's nothing else in the world,
There
isn't
isn't.
it?
Yeah.
Just
I know,
that
it's just
person
like-
to him, and he's so focused on.
So that was Squeeze, the first episode to have Eugene Victor Tooms in.
Yep.
He comes back later on, which was I suppose it was the first for the series, and possibly, I don't know, for a month or a week anyway. And we'll get to that episode, won't we?
Yeah.
Yes,
It's just I just like the way. I mean, you see it all the time anyway. That Mulder does think out of the box, but like in this one, it was almost like a puzzle. Like, how did it happen? Because the first person was murdered inside a locked office.
Yeah.
And he really, if you didn't have a Mulder,
Yes.
nobody would have understood what had happened. And it was
No.
really because he was the one who like looked. He found the screw, didn't he, on the floor?
Yeah, he found
from
the
vent.
screw, and then
And the vent was like what?
it was tiny,
4
wasn't it?
by 6 inches
Yeah.
of that. And they were like,
creepy.
nobody can come through that. And he went, no person could come through it. And he was like, yeah, you're right, no person.
I like that. At the end, he says that all the securities, all the home locks,
Yeah,
and this guy can just
yeah, nobody's
slip
safe.
through.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, nobody is
Yeah.
safe.
There's a lot of stuff as well that you could point to the episode, because it shows the use of technology that is widely used today, that was in its infancy back then as well. You had the computer
Yeah.
generation of the fingerprint that
Where
was
it's all
elongated,
Yeah.
and then they matched it to Tooms's
Yeah.
by doing the same thing. So you've got things that we thought were amazing back then,
Yeah.
but are kind of now completely used.
Mm.
But yeah, anyway. So tomorrow we'll be doing Conduit, which I can't remember that episode. I think it's the one where the little girl gets abducted from the camper van in the lake, by the lake.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a good one. I
Yeah.
think that's a
Oh
standout
yeah,
one for me.
that
Yeah.
is a good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a standout one.
All right. I am going to say, if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, it's Ultimate Movie Geek on YouTube, and also Ultra NJ Games, which is a gaming channel which has a lot of games, a lot of focus on Batman Arkham Knight and Fortnite and Uncharted as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And he's going to be doing more, and he's a lot better at games than me, it turns out.
Yeah.
It's really annoying.
I finished Spider-Man.
All right,
That
that's
was
my
twen-
game.
And that was 20 hours.
Anyway,
I
so
got
if you
done
want
in
to
10 days.
if you want to subscribe to him, that's Ultra NJ Games. And we will see you tomorrow.
I made this.